Ladies and gentlemen, happy Friday to each and every one of you. Today marks the beginning of my podcast, which I have titled it The PROFED Journey. So, PROFED is spelled PROFED Journey. So, the PROFED Journey. And today is my very first episode, and I want to talk about the world of education. So, the Prophet Journey podcast will basically talk about the complexities of the education industry, the education world, degrees, non degrees, professional skills, workforce development, career and technical education, everything that you need to know about the world of education. I will bring it to your doorstep, to your home, and hopefully, you listening to me, you will gain a lot of understanding about how education functions and the complexities within education. So, the very first episode today, I want to talk about what is currently going on in our nation, the United States of America, when it comes to our current administration, which has categorized degrees as graduate, professional, and non professional. And I want to get into it. I want to give you everything that you really need to know and learn about this. So let's get right into it. So I don't know if any of you have heard, but I think by now you should all hear about the one big beautiful bill, which is set to um, start operating somewhere, I believe, next year, starting from July 1st. I think most programs in that one beautiful, big, beautiful bill, which was passed recently this year, will start operating within the budget and the specifications in the bill. And one of the things that our current administration categorize or kind of distinguish within the world of education is what is considered a professional degree and what is not considered a professional degree. So previously, before our current administration, institutions actually reported degree classifications to the Integrated Post-Secondary Education Data System, which is classified, or the acronyms is IPEDS, which is IPEDS. Now, when institutions were self-reporting degree classifications to the Integrated Post-Secondary Education Data System, there is no necessary distinction between what is considered a graduate and professional programs before the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. So I will repeat again. Before institutions were self-reporting degree classifications to the IPADS, which stands for Integrated Post-Secondary Education Data System, there was no necessary distinction between graduate and professional programs before the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Now, graduate programs are commonly thought of as master's or academic doctorate programs. Now, professional programs have been interpreted to mean that it's a small subset of advanced degrees, like those in law and medicine, and that require a high level of specialized professional skills. So, in that case, you would think about fields or industries like education, law, medicine, uh, social work, and so forth. Now, that is not the case in this professional degree classification of our current administration in the Department of Education. Now, they did not classify education as a professional degree. Now, education is very complex and it has a lot of degrees in it, just like other fields are complex and it has a lot of degrees in it. Um, but the precise definition is now the center stage, and with the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, it will cap loan limitations for graduate and professional programs. So traditionally, Professional programs or professional degrees have usually benefited from a higher level of graduate loans, meaning they have the ability to take out more loans to be able to complete their graduate programs or their training program, professional training programs. On the other hand, what is considered academic degrees, masters or doctorate, have also been limited when it comes to the maximum number of loans. So it has always been capped. So once you reach a certain threshold, you cannot borrow against that. That is your limit. And now you have to come out of pocket for it. So that is what we are dealing with. So beginning July 1st, 2026, new borrowers will be eligible for federal loans of up to 20,500. So 20,500 annually, and a cap of 100,000 aggregate for graduate programs. So now that we have a distinction between what is a graduate program and what is a professional program. Remember, I said before institutions were self-reported to the IPAT's data, we didn't have that distinction between what is considered a graduate program and what is considered a professional program. But now we do. So what does that mean? Beginning July 1st, 2026, new borrowers will be eligible for federal loans up to 20,500 annually and about 100,000 in aggregate for graduate programs. So what does that mean for professional programs? Now, professional programs or new borrowers will be eligible for federal loans up to 50,000 annually. So if you look at what is considered graduate programs and the borrowers, how the limit that they can live is almost half of what the professional degrees can or could borrow from the federal government. So you have graduate programs now, only 20,500. You have professional classification degrees or programs. Now the borrowers can borrow up to 50,000 annually and 200,000 in aggregate for professional programs. So remember, I'll repeat again. Graduate program, what is considered graduate programs now? Students or adults or whoever's in those kinds of programs will be allowed to borrow only up to 20,500 annually, and in aggregate, meaning the threshold that I talked to you about, they only have the threshold of $100,000 in aggregate for graduate programs. So once you hit that $100,000 aggregate, you cannot borrow. You got to come out of pocket. Now, for what is considered professional programs now, they can borrow up to 50,000 annually, and the threshold is $200,000 in aggregate for professional programs. And once you hit that $200,000 threshold, you have to come out of pocket. So, what was once actually considered a trivial data self-reporting now has financial implications. So, our current administration is creating an incentives for programs to classify themselves as professional to benefit from the higher loan limits. Okay, now let's look at the list of what is considered professional degrees through the U.S. Secretary of Education. Now, our current administration, through the U.S. Secretary of Education, through the rulemaking, came up with these list of professional recognized degrees, which is pharmacy, dentistry, veterinary medicine, chiropractic, law, medicine itself, optometry, osteopathic medicine, which is the DO, people that have the DO credentials, podiatry, and theology. Those are the short listed, the things that I just mentioned. Those are the listed of professional degrees currently. Now, what you did not hear are currently considered to be graduate programs. So I know I didn't say nursing, I didn't say physical therapy, occupational therapy, social work, business, MBA, education. So that is now considered to be graduate programs. So meaning they have limited amount to borrow up to 20,500 annually, and they have a threshold of 100,000 in aggregate funding. Now the list that I just gave you, which is the rulemaking through the rulemaking, they classify these as professional degree programs: pharmacy, dentistry, veterinary medicine, chiropractic, law, medicine itself, optometry, osteopathic medicine, podiatry, and theology. Now, let's look at the definition. Let's look at the credential, not even the definition, the credentials of everything that I just mentioned about the professional degree. So, pharmacy is PharmD, right? Those are their credential. Dentistry is either DDS or DMD, which is a Doctor of Medicine in Dentistry. Veterinary medicine is DVM. Those are their credential, their degree credential. Chiropractic is DC or DCM. Law is LLB or JD. I mean, JD is primarily what we have here in the US, but other foreign countries have the JD equivalent to other foreign countries. Law degrees are the LLB. And then we have the medicine, which is the MD. And then optometry, which is the OD. Osteopathic medicine, which is a DO. And podiatry, which is either the DPM, the DP, or the PODD. So POD. And then you have the theology, which is the MDiv or MHL. So those are what our current administration, through the rulemaking from the U.S. Department of Education, currently describe as professional degrees. So anything that you did not hear is not currently classified as professional degree. They have classified it as graduate programs. So I know you did not hear medicine. I mean, you did not hear nursing. You did not hear education, speech pathology, audiology, MBAs, you name it all. So those are kind of considered graduate programs now. I want to be very specific here that even though those are not listed here as professional degrees, doesn't mean that they are not professional degrees. So a professional degree is a credential qualification that requires you to sit down for a professional licensure board exam. So before you can actually work in that field or industry, you need a professional licensure. So meaning you have to pass a national board exam, and for you to be issued a professional licensure number, so that you can use that to practice. So for example, teachers have to sit down for their professional license board exam, which is sometimes state or national exam, and then they get that credential or licensure number to practice education in their state. The same thing with nurses. They have to sit for the NCLEX, and they have to pass it, and they have to get a number before they can practice nursing. The same thing with audiology or social work, or speech language pathology, or other things. So those require DPT, like Doctor of Physical Therapy, occupational therapy. All of that required professionally for you to sit down and get your professional licensure exam. Now let me go over the list of degrees or credentials, the acronyms that were not mentioned, and I want to be very specific here. So you have education and education masters. Okay, those were not really considered professional degrees in the current education administration. And then you have nursing, the MSN and DMP. You have social work, MSW or DSW. You have public health, MPH or DRPH. You have physician assistant programs or degrees, occupational therapy, physical therapy, audiology, speech language pathology, business masters, which is the MBO, other forms of master's degree in the business industry or field, and you have engineering masters, and you have counseling and therapy master's program. So those were not considered professional. Those were actually classified as graduate. So meaning they don't have the maximum. They can only borrow only 20,500 annually, and they have a cap of $100,000. After that threshold has been reached, they have to pay out of pocket. Now, on the other hand, the professional degrees, the list that I gave you earlier, they have up to $50,000 to borrow, and then they have a threshold of $200,000 to borrow. After that, they have to come out of pocket. Now, let's look at the implications of it. So, the loan cap, only degrees labeled professional will qualify for the higher federal loan caps, creating a major funding gap. Okay, and let's look at the funding loss of key fields. Students in advanced programs will face lower borrowing limits and may lose access to Grad Plus loans. Let's look at the fewer workers for high need communities. These programs train people who work in underserved, rural, minoritized communities, which can reduce access to funding limits, how many professionals enter fields that already have shortages. So that classification of graduate or professional is really going to exacerbate the shortages in nursing, social work, public health, and other things. So that was one person that posted on Instagram, and I find that to be very interesting. Her name is Clarissa Moore, Money Coach. I think that's her Instagram name, or her Instagram tag is Clarissa Explains Money. So she actually posted that, and it has been going viral, of the degrees that were not listed as professional degrees and the implications of it. Now, I want to turn our attention to another gentleman by the name of Tyrone Layson. He's a public health. He has a master's in public health. He posted on LinkedIn, and his implications, and he talked about the same topic that we are currently discussing. And one of the repercussions that he talked about, of course, the financial aid and student debt that Clarissa already mentioned. And he talked about a couple of impacts, and I want us to talk about. So, first of all, he talked about the professional recognition of it. If you're, downgrading it from being a professional program, public health, for example, to a graduate program, that is going to have an impact on professional recognition and also the workforce status. That is going to exacerbate the health inequalities and inequities when it comes to the national health policy, because now you're going to have a lot of students that do not want to, or graduates that do not want to go into the public health field because not recognizing as a professional recognition in the workforce status will bring down salaries. That's what I think that's Tyrone was trying to mention here. And another thing that he talked about, like I just mentioned, was the future recruitment. So more college students or graduates would not want to go into, the public health field because it's the financial risk and under recognized and less supported by the federal agencies, because these kind of categorization came out from our current administration's Department of Education. So why will I want to go if the federal government doesn't really recognize me as a professional in that manner? So those are some of the things that I wanted to bring to your attention when it comes to the new specification. Well, I know that they met to kind of discuss again on the rulemaking, and I know that the federal negotiators at the Department of Education each had a region that they represented, or programs that they represented. So from what I read, they were going to reach out to their constituents and debate with them on how to make corrections or their feedback and so forth. I haven't heard about the update, but it should be very interesting moving forward on what really comes out after their meeting. I think they met last week, Thursday or Friday, if I'm not mistaken. So that should be very interesting to hear from them with the new update, if they are going to add more of the graduate classifications to the professional list, or are they going to keep it as is, or what is the implications that will come for universities per se. Because if students are not getting the maximum support from the federal government to be able to complete their professional training. If their degrees is currently classified as graduate programs, then that means they're not going to get the maximum loan to be able to complete the program. So you're going to have a lot of exodus from professional programs, which is now classified as graduate programs. So I think the implications would be very complex. It's really going to hurt students and families and institutions per se. So I look forward to updating you about any updates that I receive or read about in the future. For next time, stay tuned to the PROFED journey. Take care.